Hi friends, my name is Emily and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a reading journal related video. We are going to be taking a look at my Q4 stats and then my 2021 stats overall, and I will share with you the 2022 setup and my goals for the year as well. I'm just using a moleskin dotted notebook that I got at Indigo. It is just a notebook, very plain, very customizable, I guess would be the best word. In Q4, I had 11 new buys. 6 books that I read were from my TBR. 2 I borrowed. 5 were rereads. I DNF'd 1 book. So I read a total of 24 books in Q4. So that is October, November, December. 15 of those books were by women, or not men. 9 were by men. 2 were by BIPOC authors, and 2 were by openly queer authors. Everything is down, which is not great. In Q3, I had 65% not men, 30% BIPOC, and 35% queer authors. So that's something to keep in mind as I move forward into the new year, being more mindful about who I'm reading each month if I really want to put my money where my mouth is and read diversely. So then I ended up hauling 21 books, which is the most that I hauled in any month throughout the year. Not great, and this has definitely influenced what I'm planning on doing in 2022. In 2020, I made this little chart where I went through month by month and I noted what of each I was doing in each month, and I did some stats. So I'm going to do that again as well. I am tracking some slightly different things, so we'll see. That looks a little bit different. So let's just go through and fill in my stats. Good morning. So I'm currently editing this video, and you'll notice perhaps that for whatever reason, my brain short-circuited and I did not continue to add stats for not men, BIPOC, and queer authors for December, which makes the biggest difference for the not men category, where I actually read 8 not men in December. The difference, I didn't read any BIPOC authors in December, and I only read 1 queer author in December, so the stats there don't greatly differ. But what this does to the not men stat is take it from 60% to 68.5%, and I've been rounding up for 0.5, so it actually gets me to 69%. So this actually gets me a lot closer to my goal of 80% not men. Yeah, I have just gone back and I have fixed it for myself, and I'm adding this to the overview of me doing this. But yeah, I did notice on the second pass through editing this that I just didn't fill out the rest of the chart. So yay. The number that I'm getting for new TBR, borrow, and reread is 89, which is slightly off of my Goodreads numbers. I'm fine with it. I'm going by the numbers that I have here. Next year, I think I might do maybe some spreadsheets on a computer. You know? Maybe a spreadsheet would be a good idea. Okay, so basically, these numbers here are counting towards my total, which is... I didn't set this up very well. 89. 43% were new. 22% are from my TBR. 12% were borrowed. And then that should mean another 22% were rereads. So the majority of my reads this year were new buys, which I would like to change. 60% of my reading was not men. 22% of my reading was BIPOC authors. 21% of my reading was queer. Because I haven't tracked my stats before, this gives me something to keep in mind as I'm reading if I'm going to treat myself to a book, because I have a no-buy plan in place. If I'm going to treat myself to a book, if I really want to be reading diversely, which I do, then I can probably do better than 20%, right? If we compare those to my goals, I wanted to focus on women, and my goal, my guess sort of thing to aim towards was 80%. I achieved 60%, which is not bad. And I wanted to try and make it 50% BIPOC authors, which I did not achieve, but I have something to work towards. And then I wanted to track how many queer authors I was reading because I genuinely didn't know. So now I have a stat to try and improve. The other thing that I wanted to keep track of was to read what I own, around 60%. When I said read what I own, what I meant was read what I had already had in my collection, my TBR, my physical TBR, and I did not even remotely come close to that. So I knew that. I had a good sense of that, but now I have the number to prove it, and so it confirms my desire to do a no-buy year next year. So let's move on to the actual hauling. So what I did is I went through and I looked at what I hauled each month. So in January, I hauled 6. In February, I hauled 4. And in March, I hauled 8 for a total of 18 in Q1. In Q2, January, February, March, April, I hauled 9. May, I hauled 3. And June, I hauled 6. That's, again, another 18 books. In Q3, so I hauled 7 books. In August, I hauled 2. And in September, I hauled 5 for a total of 14. And then in Q4, I hauled 7 in October, 9 in November, and 5 in December for a total of 21. And that, my friends, maths out to 71 new books, which is not great. What I've been doing is every month I go through and I look at what I haul, and then I cross off what I hauled, and I sort of date it if it's at a later date. And so I went through and I marked what is left in each month. I actually went back and read all of the books that I hauled in January. So there were 0 from January. I only read 1 from February of the 4. I still have 5 left from March for a total of 8. In Q2, I have 2 left unread, 0 from the next month, 5 left from June, for a total of 7 out of 18. 3, we're looking at July. I have 2 and 1 and 2 for 5 out of 14 unread. And then for Q4, we have 3 plus 7 plus 3 for 13 out of 21 unread. And when we math those together, we get 32 currently unread. This is not great considering how many books I have purchased. So, I mean, while you can see that most months I did read mostly new books, there's still quite a few left over. I'm buying more than I'm actually getting to. With that in mind, I am going to share with you my 2022 reading goals. My first reading goal is to read 100 books. This year, my numbers indicate that I read 89 books. It's pretty close, but I think I can stretch myself a little bit. I've also really noticed how much time I spend dicking around on my phone, and I could fill that with reading. So I would like to set a stretch goal. No pressure if I don't get there. That stretch goal I'm hoping will help me waste less time doing like mindless things. Number 2 is to really read what I own. and I have set a no-buy for myself. Number 3 is to follow those no-buy rules, and I've asked my partner to help keep me accountable. Number 4 is to participate in read-alongs, and to not purchase things for read-alongs, but to try and make what I have fit those read-alongs. Number 5 is to do the Tamora Pierce reread, and number 6 is to improve on the 2021 stats. So, I tracked my stats here. I have my numbers, and I'm going to fill out my 2021 numbers and then, where appropriate, set some goals. We'll get to that in a minute. So when I talk about my no-buy rules, I decided to set myself 4 rules. Number 1 is to unsubscribe from book emails. I'm subscribed to publishers, I'm subscribed to bookstores, and I feel like a lot of my new buy numbers come from being a former bookseller, knowing what a good price is, like knowing what employee discount I used to have. Last year, I would jump on anything that I realized was an equivalent to the employee discount, and that resulted in a lot of hauling books at a good price that I haven't read. So if I unsubscribe from the book emails, I'm not going to see those sales, and I won't be tempted. Number 2 is that I can only buy book club books. So I host 2 book clubs. They're both patron book clubs, but one we're going to open up the live show to everyone. I am allowing myself to buy the book club books because I'm going to want to annotate and read the book multiple times, so I don't want to do that to a library copy. And I don't enjoy digital reading. I want ultimately to relax and to enjoy while I'm doing this. So I'm going to purchase them in my preferred format, which is physical. Number 3 is that I can buy the next in the series if I'm really hyped about it and I'm going to read it, it's going to be my next read. I think what I'm going to do to ensure this is that I am going to look for the book in person. So none of this like order it to my house nonsense so that I can start something else. If I really want to buy the next book in a series, I'm going to pick it up in person and make that effort. I'm going to try that at least. We'll see how that goes. And number 4 is that I can make a wish list and treat myself once a quarter. As I hear about new books, see lots of things online, if there are things that are catching my eye, I'm going to make a wish list. If at the end of the quarter, I look at my stats, I look at what I'm doing, I am going to allow myself to buy one of those books. And anything that's still on the wish list by the end of the year, my birthday is in October, Christmas is at the end of the year. So I did decide to give myself an exception. Outside of the quarterly hauls, if Tamora Pierce or Patrick Rothfuss release a new book, I can buy that book on its release day. So I don't have to wait for it, because those are both authors. I've heard rumblings from Patrick Rothfuss that he was like reading chapters from the next book in the King Craylor Chronicles or something like that. If that book comes out this year, I'm buying it. Same with Tamora Pierce. If Tamora Pierce comes out with a new book, I have looked at her website. I don't see anything on the radar as of the beginning of 2022, but who knows? If Tamora Pierce releases a book, I'm picking it up. Those are my only exceptions. And by making this public, I'm hoping that that will lead to some accountability. So I'm going to quickly go through and mark down my numbers here, and then I'm going to set some goals. These are my numbers. I've decided to put arcs in here as a new thing to track. I don't tend to pick up a lot of arcs anymore now that I'm not an employee, but I'm going to consider those new. I've put them in the same color coding as new, because if I'm reading an arc, then I'm not reading something on my TBR. And I've put borrow in pink, a very similar color, so that I can sort of connect them in my mind. Because again, if I'm borrowing something, I'm not reading something from my TBR. My goal, let's raise it by 10, because I'm still going to be reading things from my TBR. Let's actually just aim for 50%. Queer, let's aim to raise that by 10%. This is a little bit chaotic, but it works for me. The other thing that I would like to add is that I want to track some different things this year. I want to take note of how many pages per book. I'm going to track the medium, so physical, audio, digital, etc. I would like to actually add a non-binary category. Basically, in my mind, when I write down women, it's like, it truly is not men. Am I reading other genders that are not men? There is no way for me other than like going through in my like notes themselves to be like, okay, so have I read any non-binary authors? And then I would also like to note translated, if I'm reading translated fiction. I mean, if the goal is to sort of track my stats to see if I'm reading diversely, I should maybe consider reading more things that have been translated so that I'm not just reading authors of color from the States or the UK. Also noted in here, I know this isn't pretty, but I jotted these down with the intention of rewriting them and then thought, fuck it, who has time for that? So this is my TBR. Plural, TBRs. I have my 5 books to reread, which I have a video for. I have 30 books to read in 2022, which I have a video for. And then the Red Rum Book Club I talk about in my new patron tiers updates video. So these are the books that I want to sort of highlight and keep at the forefront of my mind this year. And then we move into my January setup. I like doing this little picture with like at a glance. This used to be in the front of my like work life bullet journal, but it was always weird to go back and forth between my work life bullet journal to my reading journal to then basically duplicate this, but in a review. And then when I was using my reading journal for videos as like a notes keeping thing, I had to have 2 notebooks with me all the time. So I decided to put this here, and it makes my work life journal feel a little bit odd. Like I might regret that decision because for years, basically since I started bullet journaling, I have always kept track of my reading in my bullet journal opposed to my reading journal. I'm gonna try it out. The beauty of bullet journaling is that I can always add it in, right? So I have these 2 side by side so that I can note what I'm reading, note my stats on this page. What I usually do for reviews is like the title and then the stats, and I write some thoughts, something to, you know, jolt my memory. That is my little bullet journal check-in. So a flip through was requested, but I'm not quite sure because it's not as aesthetic as like another bullet journal, but I can do a little flip through here. So I did make a cover page for 2021. I did my reading goals, a little TBR, current spillover. I did do cover pages. I'm not sure if I'm going to do cover pages again in 2022, mostly because they're kind of inconsistent and they annoy me that they're inconsistent. So I just do colors that match the cover because I used to have a printer and I used to print out images of the books, which I feel like would be fun to do at some point. It was also a lot of ink. I've thought about maybe at some point getting one of those little sprocket printers, taking a photo of each book, but like an Instagram photo, you know, something pretty, something to sort of remind myself of time and place while I was reading it, and to print that out with each one so it sort of becomes like a memory keeping thing as well. But that requires buying some things. So for now, I'm just using markers. Sometimes I get a little fancier and I'll put cover elements in. It really depends on what I'm feeling like. Oh, I have put in other things. Like I put in an order so that I could track when they came in. I do like this one. I was having fun doodling in my life bullet journal and I carried that over here for each one. Sometimes I include a TBR if I make a TBR video. I also have a little rainbow stamp that I use for queer authors. My life bullet journal was Hocus Pocus themed, so I carried that over and I took the hello, I want my book, bonjour, je veux mon livre. I set myself a fall TBR in a video, so I wrote that in here. And then I think this one was my favorite. It was my favorite life bullet journal thing as well. I really like Over the Garden Wall. And so I did an Over the Garden Wall cover page for November. I had fun with that. And then we go into the stats. This is for a 2022 cover page. I'm gonna do that. I just have to get out some stamps, some letter stamps, bigger ones. So yeah, I don't think I'm gonna make it the whole year in this book. I hopefully won't, given how little of it is left. So I have another notebook picked out as well. It's another moleskin notebook, but it is a grid notebook. Hopefully that will get me through the year, and then I can start in 2023 with a new notebook and do like one whole year in one notebook. This is an odd sized notebook. It's a little bit, it's like a, what do they call it? Moleskin has like a plus sized moleskin. Here, like for comparison. This is the one that I'm gonna move into later in the year. And I'm hoping that 2023 I can put all in one regular sized notebook and sort of keep all of my thoughts together. Several people have requested this, so I'm hoping that you enjoyed it. You enjoyed seeing the stats tracking. You enjoyed seeing just how I set this up. It's very simple. I'm thinking the more I track, the more I maybe need to do an Excel spreadsheet though, because my numbers are off from Goodreads numbers. Somewhere I've missed tracking something. Before we go, we have to thank my patrons who make videos like this possible. Patrons tip me so that you can watch these videos for free, and I very much appreciate that they support this work. I hope you are all doing well, that you are staying safe, and that you have a good start to 2022. I'll see you with another video soon. Bye!